Have you ever looked at someone who seems incredibly capable? Someone who is intelligent, driven, successful, dependable, yet privately they are overwhelmed, emotionally exhausted, and struggling to make even simple decisions. I have met hundreds of people like that. In fact, they are the people I work with most. They are not lacking ambition. They are not lacking discipline. They are not lacking information. They are carrying something much heavier. Internal fragmentation. That is what they are carrying. And here is the mistake most people make. They assume the solution is another productivity system, another morning routine, another mindset hack, another motivational seminar. What if none of those solve the real problem? What if you don't need another strategy for doing more? What if you need a framework for becoming whole? That is exactly why I developed the framework I use with high capacity clients. Not to help them squeeze more performance out of themselves, but to help them eliminate the hidden internal conflicts that make high performance so exhausting. Today, I'm going to take you inside that framework. I'll show you why traditional self-improvement often fails high performance. I'll show you the 5 stages every client walks through and why sustainable success begins with internal coherence, not external optimization. And by the end of this video, you may discover that the greatest obstacle to your next breakthrough isn't outside you. It is inside the system you have been operating from. Let us begin. One of the first things I realized after working with high performers is this. Information is rarely their problem. Most of my clients already know what they should do. They know they should rest. They know they should establish boundaries. They know they should prioritize. They know they should stop overthinking. Knowledge isn't missing. What is missing from their lives is integration. Think about Tony Stark. His problem wasn't intelligence. He could solve incredible, complex engineering challenges. Yet, internally, he wrestled with fear, identity, anxiety, pressure. His challenge wasn't capability, it was coherence. Performers, high performers live exactly the same way. Majority of the high performers live exactly the same way. Externally, they're brilliant. Internally, they're divided. That is why my framework doesn't begin by teaching people more. It begins by helping them understand themselves better. Because information changes what you know. Alignment changes how you live. Every transformation begins with diagnosis. Imagine a pilot preparing for takeoff. Before the aircraft leaves the ground, every critical system is checked. Fuel is checked, navigation, hydraulics, communication, because flying with undetected fault is dangerous. I believe personal growth should begin the same way. The first stage of my framework is diagnosis, not assumptions, diagnosis. Together, We examine 5 key areas, namely values, identity, priorities, emotional patterns, and behaviors. Clients are often surprised. They come believing they are struggling with procrastination. We discover they are actually struggling with perfectionism, or fear, or unclear priorities, or approval seeking. The visible struggle is rarely the real struggle. That's why diagnosis changes everything. You cannot recalibrate what you haven't identified. Yes, you cannot recalibrate what you haven't identified. Once we understand where the conflict exists, we begin restoring alignment. This is the heart of the framework, because people don't become overwhelmed simply because they have too much to do. They become overwhelmed because too many parts of them are competing at the same time. One part wants achievement, another part wants peace, another part wants security, another wants freedom, another part seeks recognition, another part longs for rest. Imagine an orchestra. Every musician is talented, every instrument is perfectly tuned, but each section is following a different conductor. The problem isn't ability, it is coordination. That is internal incoherence. The framework helps clients become internally coordinated again. When values support priorities, when priorities support decisions, when identity supports behavior, life becomes lighter. Not because responsibilities disappear, because internal resistance decreases. Here is something most people never realize. Overwhelm is often a decision-making problem before it becomes a time management problem. When your internal world is fragmented, every decision requires more energy. Simple choices become mentally exhausting. Clients often tell me, I don't know why every decision feels so heavy. The answer is usually internal conflict. So the third stage of my framework is recalibrating how they make decisions. Instead of reacting emotionally, they begin responding intentionally. Instead of asking, what should I do? They begin asking, what aligns with my values? Instead of chasing urgency, they prioritize significance. Think about Captain America. His decisions weren't easy, but they were clear, because his values anchored his choices. Clarity isn't about having fewer options. It's about having stronger internal anchors. Now comes the mistake many personal development programs make. They stop after insight. And insight is valuable, but insight without structure fades. That is why the fourth stage is creating supportive structures. Notice I didn't say restrictive systems, I said supportive structures. Structures that reinforce coherence, not pressure. This includes healthy boundaries, decision filters, reflection rhythms, recovery practices, priority reviews. These aren't productive hacks. They are alignment practices. Think about building a bridge. The structure exists to carry weight, not create more weight. Your routines should do the same. A healthy system should reduce cognitive load, not increase it. If your productivity system constantly makes you feel guilty, it's probably serving itself instead of serving you. It's probably serving itself instead of serving you. Let me leave you with this. People often ask me, what is different about your framework? Yeah, they ask me, what is different about your framework? Here is the answer. It doesn't begin with performance. It begins with the person. Because sustainable performance is the outcome, not the starting point. The framework I use with high capacity clients isn't designed to help people push harder. No, it is designed to help them stop pushing against themselves. It helps them move from fragmentation to coherence. It helps them move from confusion to clarity. It helps them move from emotional survival to emotional stability. It helps them move from constant reaction to intentional leadership. Because when your values, your identity, your emotions, your priorities, and your behaviors begin working together, everything changes. Not overnight, but fundamentally. You simply become more productive. You become more integrated. And integrated people make better decisions, lead more effectively, handle pressure more calmly, and sustain success without sacrificing themselves in the process. Remember this. You don't rise to the level of your ambition. You rise to the level of your internal coherence. Rise to the level of your internal coherence. That's why the greatest investment you can make isn't in another productivity system. It is in rebuilding the internal system that drives every decision you make. Because when the internal system changes, the external results eventually follow. And that's the framework I use with every high capacity client I work with. If this video resonated with you, comment here below with the word coherence. And tell me, which stage do you think would have the greatest impact on your life right now? Is it the diagnosis? Is it the internal coherence? Is it the decision recalibration? Or is it supportive structure? If you are ready to stop managing symptoms and start transforming the system beneath them, subscribe to the channel. Because lasting transformation doesn't when you become a different person. It becomes when every part of who you are already begins working together.